Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. What gives you confidence that you can get this thing turned around a little bit into your favor?
I'll start with the people, the type of guys we have in the locker room. Start with your captains, the leaders, just from top to bottom, the right type of guys, whether you're talking about CD and Dak and, in defense, Donovan Wilson and, Osa and CJ and Brandon, and there's 1,000 more. We've talked about this from the beginning. The adversity was going to come. The adversity is here. We know that. And certainly you watch that game yesterday, Calvin, and, we didn't really give ourselves the best chance to win. You can't have 12 penalties and 7 pre-snap penalties and in critical situations where you're on the 1-yard line or you get off the field on defense on 3rd down and then there's a offsides penalty and then they convert and 2 plays later they're in the end zone. So I would start with the people, and I'll always start with the people, and that's the coaches as well. Good meetings this morning with the coaches, pointed out the issues, watched it. We took our accountability for the things that we could have done better in that game, and there was certainly a lot of those, and talked about some potential adjustments. So I think it's the makeup of the people, the brotherhood, both coaches and players alike.
You talk about adjustments. What would that pertain to? Personnel, scheme?
A lot of things. Quite honestly, a lot of things. You can't come off of a game like yesterday and not expect there to be changes. And it was clearly our most incomplete game that we've played as a football team, really all 3 phases. I spoke a little bit about, the discipline aspect of it, but, you look at the inability to run the football offensively and the run game success that Denver had, that's not going to allow you to sustain much success when you're giving up a ton of yards rushing and you're not able to match that with your run game. And, that was a big part of it. And then, of course, the red zone. We're better than 2 for 4 offensively. You're down on the 1-yard line. You got to come away after a sudden change with a touchdown, and we don't. And on defense, certainly, giving up 4 out of 5 drives that enter in the red zone, you can't give up touchdowns. You got to make them kick field goals, and that's a big part of momentum. And we never were able to capture momentum, and the Broncos did.
Clarence, to DLLS Cowboys, just on the defense and the run defense, most of the guys that were in there, the changes were in the secondary. But up front, what were the problems up front and why they were able to run so well?
Yeah, again, gap control is the first thing I would say, Clarence. Just guys fitting their gaps. And, we got to clean up our eyes. We've said that. I've said that up here probably, too many times. There's so many things in today's modern day of pro football where it's not just layman's terms, but you're not just running outside zone to the right or to the left anymore. There's things crossing and motions that go across, and it's designed for a reason. It's designed to kind of make a guy not fit the gap the right way. And the best way to play run defense is to be coordinated and to fit your gaps. And there's been breakdowns at a lot of different levels by different people at different times. There's some things that we need to do schematically as a staff to tighten that up and to eliminate some of the combination blocks that are being allowed to happen. If you're playing a 4-down spacing team and you get a combination block and the linebackers don't go and shoot a gap, come downhill, then the linemen stay on that block a lot longer, and so they're going to get more displacement and movement. And there's crack replaces that have to happen. You're dealing in an era of this league. We do it. Obviously not well enough yesterday, but cut splits, and you're cracking safeties, and the corners have to replace. And if they don't, the ball's going to bounce to the edge. You saw us we lost perimeter support some last game, and I know Dobbins got out early in one of the big runs, and it's all about playing your gap and containing things. And I think the biggest thing is just we knew what runs were coming, and we weren't able to stop them. I'm talking about downhill duo and then some of the toss crack schemes. And that's why it's something that we just have to really get back to using our fundamentals and techniques. And we drilled those things, and they didn't show up on game day. And that's what's disappointing as a coach.
Yeah, after Carolina, we talked about physicality. Was physicality the issue? And then can you talk about the edge runs? Defensive ends and not setting the edge.
Yeah, so, again, I do think the physicality was there. The guys play hard. They always play hard. It's not about that. I think the edge runs. If you're a defensive end, you're getting ready to get cracked. We call it a crack block. You got a choice, right? You either pop the crack or you try to beat it with speed, and we call it cleaning the window. And there's a couple good examples of those. But what was happening is sometimes our alignments on the backside with the linebackers weren't perfect. And so when they toss the ball, if I'm a little bit behind or half a yard removed from my gap, I can't get over the top of the block. And if you don't set the edge, we talk about setting the edge out of the numbers on those plays, it creates running lanes. And there was too many running lanes. I know certainly on the 42-yard run that Harvey had, there was too many running lanes, and we had a couple opportunities to get them on the ground, and we didn't.
Brian, Todd Archer with ESPN. Is there ever a time for drastic changes to shake things up, catch people's attention, get people's attention to say, okay, this isn't acceptable either? Bench guys, moving on from guys, changing things.
Yeah, again, I think there's number one, there's always reason to change, and there will be changes. I can promise you that. I can assure you that. Like I said, we've already had some of those meetings and we've talked about those changes. We're in the mode right now of we got kind of a one-game season, and I just say that because we got Arizona before the bye. And then really your bigger changes, Todd, are going to happen over the bye week when you get a chance to say, okay, now we're looking back at 9 games. Now we're looking back at, okay, what were those issues? Did we get those corrected? No, we need to do this. We need to do that. But, we always want guys competing, and you're going to see guys competing for playing time. And, we're dealing with some injuries at the safety position. And so you'll see guys stepping up. But no one is pleased. No one is happy with the way we performed yesterday. It's not acceptable. It's not good enough. And that starts with me. And so I would say that both the staff and the players are aware of that the standard was not met. So now what do? Okay, well, you be solution-oriented, and the solutions are making adjustments to scheme and making changes potentially in personnel and giving this guy maybe a little bit more play time and all that. And those things will play themselves out. The bonus for this week is we do have the extra day, getting ready for, playing Arizona here on Monday night.
For you as the play caller, the opposing team has scored on 49% of their drives against your defense so far. Do you have to call games differently? Do you have to put that in your mindset when you're calling plays?
I think we feel like we can go out and score anytime. That's the mindset that we take because of the talent that we have and, our ability to score and strike pretty quickly and be efficiently and match them. I really don't, I don't get caught up in, I got to call plays a certain way. I mean, we've scored 40 points multiple times. We've scored 30 points multiple times. It'd be great to have a couple games, maybe 10-7. Sometimes we'll take those too. But we're prepared to play however we got to play. And as a play caller, I focus in the moment, man. And if it's 3rd and 3, it's 3rd and 3. If it's 1st and 10, it's 1st and 10. If it's 21-3, it's 21-3. Good guys or bad guys.
But even if your defense is having a hard time stopping folks, you have to get out of character and go, looking back with that first drive, would you go for it on 4th down instead of the chip shot field goal? I asked you after the game, the Turpin drop, you thought about going for it. Would you go back and do those things differently knowing that your defense hasn't gotten stopped?
Yeah, you can. You certainly can. I think, at the end of the day, you got to make those predictions. And, there is some belief that the defense will step up and make plays, and I still do believe that. And at the end of the day, I have to make those decisions. And if there's plays I like, then absolutely you can be more aggressive. And other times, you're going to be like, no, let's punt it deep and give the defense a chance to go out there and make plays. They've made those stops. They've created those turnovers. They just haven't done it consistently enough.
John Machota with The Athletic. On the pre-snap penalties, particularly just early in the game, the 3 in the first, 7 or 8 minutes,
Yep.
just how do you get those cleaned up? Because those aren't ones that really, it doesn't matter what the talent level is, that those, I would take it that you think that those shouldn't happen. So how do those get cleaned up?
Yeah, well, again, I think, it starts with us looking at ourselves, why it happens, number one. the first one you're down there in the red zone, it's loud, low red zone, and we're bringing the guy in motion, and Guyton's amped up and wanting to go, and so he flinches. That it shouldn't happen. Tyler knows that. He knew that before anybody else. You look at the crowd noise, the environment, maybe we had a little bit too many shifts and motions, but that's who we are, and we do it all the time. We do it out here with crowd noise all the time. I just think it's settling in, and when it's different guys doing it for different reasons, that's where you have to look at yourself and say, okay, why did that happen? How can we improve it? And that's one of the things we talked about was, did we have too many shifts and motions? And I think, the answer when you go and you look at them is, we've done that before and not jumped. So why did we jump yesterday? I don't know. Guys were probably pressing a little bit and wanting to, get the ball in the end zone. But at the end of the day, it can't happen, and we have to fix it. I think we're the second most penalized team in the league, if not the first, and that's unacceptable.
And then you said after the game that you told the team, if anybody thinks that they play well, raise your hand. After seeing the film, did you think anybody played well?
Not really. I don't think anybody coached well either.
Nick?
Nick Harris, Full Star Telegram. You had mentioned yesterday in the presser that you had a few guys banged up. Anything more and figuring that out today?
No, a few guys to look at. Elijah Clark got banged up. We'll see. He could be out, a week or two. We'll see. Most everybody else, I think, will be okay. Still waiting to see on Wanye and some things like that. But Elijah was the first one that kind of popped up. But we'll find out more when we get the guys in here again tomorrow for their kind of rechecks.
Does Hooker have a chance this week?
No, he's got another week still with the IR. Yep.
One of your first draft picks was Nick Mangold as an offensive coordinator in 2006. Where did you learn the news yesterday? And is there any lasting memory of Nick that's kind of come back to you the last 24 hours?
Yeah, he was our first draft pick, my first draft as a coordinator in the NFL. And I remember getting Nick out of Ohio State, and he came in right away, and just the way he loved football, man, was, Ohio guy that loves football. And I just remember his personality was one that was so infectious, and the players loved him, and he was great with all the quarterbacks, whether it was Brett Favre or Mark Sanchez as a rookie. And but it was fun for me to watch him, be a dad, and so obviously very sad. My heart goes out to his family and really the whole Jets community, because he just was an incredible football player, but a better man. And I remember his laugh. I mean, he had just a big, booming laugh, and it's very sad. 41 years old.
Tommy Arsh, Cowboys.com. You've talked a lot about the eye integrity. Can you just dive into a little bit more on that? And what does it look like in practice when you guys are trying to work on that? And what are things you can do to try and simulate some of these things for linebackers and corners and safeties when it comes?
Yeah, Tommy, it's interesting because there's keys that everybody is looking for, right? I mean, when we sit here till midnight at night, you're all looking for keys and indicators. So it starts with that, and there's pre-snap indicators. For example, yesterday there was an indicator based on the alignment of number 13. He was a receiver. He was offset to just outside the right tackle. He's kind of looking back in and inside. Well, that's an indicator potentially that he's going to come back across the formation, which if he does that, that makes our gaps move back. So player Y has the A gap. Well, if he comes back, he flips to the other A gap or the other B gap, depending on the coverage that we're in. And so we have to be better pointing those things out. It might be the defensive ends that see it. It might be the safety that sees it. And it starts with a communication, because if you don't anticipate it happening, it happens really fast. And again, when I talk about the new era of football, probably made most famous by Sean, McVay and Shanahan, 5, 6, 7 years ago. There's so much across the ball motion and movement that it does challenge the linebackers. And so it starts with the pre-snap indicators, seeing those, communicating those, because if you predict it, it's a lot easier to have it happen. And then if you're a linebacker, you also have read keys. And so your key sometimes is the front side guard, the back, and then the tight end. Or sometimes it's the backside guard, the back, and another receiver. So all those things are moving fast. We have to get our guys focusing a little bit better and seeing less. That's the way I say it. They have to see less. Because if I try to see everybody in this room right now and see what they're doing, and okay, someone's on their phone, someone's got their pen in their mouth, whatever it is, like, it's hard for me to process. Yeah, Clarence is trying to figure it out. But like, it's a lot easier if I'm just looking at you and Todd. I'm like, okay, I can see Todd's bored because he's got his hand on his face right now. I can see he's bored with our question. So that's what we say see less.
And then when you watch the game back from an offensive line standpoint, in the run game, you were talking about yesterday how Denver lines up really wide defensively. What didn't go right, or how do you block that offensively, and what couldn't go right to get the ground game going?
You know, I think we did okay on the edges. They played wide. Where we weren't very good was straining and finishing our blocks, kind of at the second level or the second part of the play. We have to be better with that. The ID communication in the noise wasn't very good. You know, we had some combination blocks where we were decked to get off at a certain linebacker and we didn't, and he came off and made the tackle. We had way too many mental errors on offense yesterday. So that's what we have to look at as a coaching staff, what we did not do well enough, because we're usually in the 12 to 14 area. So there's clearly something that we did not do as a coaching staff offensively. To have our guys have that many mental errors is unacceptable. And that's why I say, like, the biggest thing that came out of this game was I just was disappointed that we beat ourselves a lot, on both sides. We really did. We beat ourselves with pre-snap penalties. We beat ourselves with mental errors. We beat ourselves with, lack of communication on defense in some regards. And, when you play a damn good football team like Denver in a place where they're really good at winning, whatever they've won, 9 straight games or whatever, you can't do that and win in this league.
Scott Henderson with DAP. You mentioned the offsides on the third down stop. Without that, you'd have had a pick and a stop on the first 2 possessions. How much of a believer are you in something like that really changes the game dramatically? And if you're a believer in that, is that a way you can preach to the guys about you never know when that really key moment might be?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big point in the game. In no way, shape, or form do I think that James lining up offside cost us that game. I mean, that was not it. There was 1,000 other things that went into that. But think about what you just said. The first drive, we get an interception. We go down, we get a field goal. Should have been a touchdown. Okay, the next time they get the ball, we're off the field on third down. But because we lined up in the neutral zone, which is something we control, it wasn't a cadence, it wasn't anything, that they did to draw. We literally just lined up offsides. Those do hurt you, and those are momentum-changing plays. And 3rd and 7 goes to, 3rd and 2. And same thing happened on conversely, where we had a 1st and 10, defensively, they had a holding penalty. It's 1st and 20, and we give up a touchdown pass on the next play. Like, penalties play a part in it. And, I think, we were going to go 4 downs, down there 3rd and 1 at the 1, and we jump off sides. We were going to go for it if we didn't get on 3rd down. I know we were going to get on 4th down. But the minute it went to 3rd and 6, we decided to take the points.
I know it's a no excuses world, but how challenging is the safety situation getting, and how hopeful are you that there might be some reinforcements?
It's challenging, but again, it's what you deal with in this business. Again, I think we'll have a chance to see how these guys come through the week, not Malik, but, Donovan and Wanye. Again, with Wanye, we're just not sure. I think Elijah probably will miss this week, but, you have to adjust. When you don't have a CeeDee Lamb, you have to adjust. When you don't have certain players, you have to adjust, and that's our job as coaches to figure it out. And the next man up and guys stepping up. I thought Elijah Clark, he made some good plays. He played like a young guy. He had a couple mistakes, but he plays the game the right way, and it's what you deal with. But we're thin at that spot for sure.
Joe.
Joe Hoyt, Dallas Morning News. Another vision question for you. Obviously, it's an issue that's kind of gone on for a few weeks, and you guys have made some tweaks there. How do you balance saying, hey, we need to change indicators, do this stuff, but also maybe consider the idea that maybe some guys are just not picking up some of these changes that we're trying?
Ask the question again.
Yeah, how do you balance saying, like, hey, maybe we need to change the indicators, do things like that, versus maybe the guys that are just not picking it up in terms of...
When you say indicators, I'm just trying to make sure I understand.
Vision in terms of... Hey,
seeing things?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes when you're playing 8-man spacing or 1 high, it's a little bit easier because if you have more guys down, right, the gaps are still the same, but you have more bodies to fill it. So we have done some of that. Again, I do think, though, that, pretty consistently, whether we are seeing it we're not fitting it always correctly, and if we do fit it correctly, it takes everybody playing it from outside in to get it fitted. Like I talked about, corners are very involved. If you're going to crack a safety, the corner's got to fit the D gap. And so where we're struggling a little bit is people have seen us not fit things correctly. So therefore, like you can watch J.K. on a couple of those runs. He was quick to want to take the ball to the edge on duo. And gap integrity is a real thing, and we're going to keep working it. We're going to keep stressing it because it has to get better.
You talked before about how you're a little up and down in terms of your emotions and how you want to be even keeled. How hard is it for you to be even keeled when the literal results of the games are as up and down as they've been?
Yeah. Well, the good news is when I'm sitting up here, I'm very even keel because I like you guys. On game day, if you could hear me on the headsets, it's a lot more of the up and the down. It's an emotional business. It's an emotional game. But I'm pretty good at once I get it out, compartmentalizing and moving on. But again, no one's pleased with the way we performed yesterday, And just like I'm not going to overreact to us beating Washington, or I'm not going to overreact to us, have beaten the Jets. I'm not going to overreact to this. I'm going to deal with the facts, and the facts are we did not play very well, and that is not our standard. And so therefore, we will make changes. We will do things better, and like I said, it's a one-game season because we want to find a way to beat Arizona and go into the bye sitting here at 4-4-1.
Garrett.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Hey, Brian, you mentioned kind of the up and down nature just of your season. How hard is it to, find a rhythm your first year as a coach, given kind of the win-loss kind of pattern that you just described? Yeah,
again, it's trust in the process, Garrett. No one wants a win streak more than anybody in this locker room, in this team room, players and coaches. We want to have a winning streak. To win a game and lose a game and win a game and lose a game sucks. Nobody wants that. But it's who we are right now. And so you can sit there and be frustrated by it, which, believe me, I didn't sleep a wink last night. I tossed and turned all night. I played the game over in my mind 1,000 times, things I could have done different, things I could have done better. I know a lot of our players did that as well, certainly some of the coaches. But at the end of the day, you got to trust the process. And me complaining about it or me bitching and moaning about it's not going to fix it. What's going to fix it is getting in that film room, getting the staff together, talking about, okay, well, this is not good enough. We got to do this better. We got to do, we got to be solution oriented. I can't say that to the players and then not start that with the coaches and myself. And so I will always look at myself first. You will never hear me get up here and not take responsibility or accountability for myself because as the leader of this football team, that's my job.
Brianna Aldridge, CBS News Texas. A lot of the guys we heard from the locker room kind of taking accountability, saying they felt like they were prepared and saw a lot of what they saw yesterday at practice. And like you mentioned, it's not transferring to game day. How much of that is about inexperience and the guys that going into some new spots? And at what point as a coach do you have to say, okay, it's not working?
I do think that it's fair to say that there's been a lot of moving parts at a lot of positions, certainly the secondary has probably been the hardest hit with revolving door, things like that. We're, trying to move pieces around, and next thing you know, Elijah, he's out, so then Reddy's got to go back and play. That's part of it. But again, at the same time, I'm not someone that's going to make a lot of excuses. There was nothing that we were calling yesterday as a defense that our guys hadn't heard before. And it's really just us having to execute better at a higher level. How do you do that? Well, you do that by communicating better. You do that by sharing information. On one of the touchdowns that they had, they changed strength motion, and we were trying to get a call out. We didn't get it echoed, so half the guys were kind of thinking it was one thing, the other half was doing that. Well, that shouldn't happen. We make those calls all the time. And so that's where I go back to the execution. Needs to be better, and there's things that we can do to do that and to make those guys better. But I will never use the excuse, but there's been a lot of moving parts, certainly in the secondary for sure.
All righty.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.